Alright, so it's your man Tron Walker here again. And today I'm just trying to give you all an update as to how my Planeswalker deck has been doing. And now I think I'm to the point where I am not able to improve this deck anymore. What I mean by that is the deck has proven to be resilient enough to win against things like Burn, Dredge, and Control. Various different types of control. Way too much control. But hey, I'm sure you guys have noticed lately, control decks have been very, very rampant in Modern. But yeah, so far the deck has proven to be pretty resilient, and honestly, I'm impressed with it. I still think I'll keep playing this deck forever. So whenever I do see a new card that comes out that, could potentially improve this deck, I'm definitely gonna add it, make another video about it. But as of right now, I think this is as good as this deck can get. The only thing is, like with the meta, the sideboard can change here and there. It just depends on, what's going on in various different formats that you're going to play this deck in at that point in time. But I'm just going to give you guys a quick overview as to what I'll change with the deck. So as far as the lands go, the lands have not changed at all. The reason why is they just work. I have added Gemstone Caverns in, just to squeeze out the one extra mana I need on turn 3 to ultimate Liliana, but it hasn't given the best results. So because that's the case, I've decided to just do away with that and just, make this a turn 4 or a turn 5 deck, which can still be competitive. It just depends on who you're going against. Because if you're going against somebody who's playing Burn, you're gonna want to gain life, which means that things like Street Wraith that cost you 2 life to, draw a card to cycle, you're gonna want to take things like that out. But luckily on the sideboard there are cards to gain you life. So that being the case, it's pretty much got Burn Mix covered. As far as the artifacts go, yes, a lot of people are gonna point out, oh, Stony Silence will, wreck this deck. Or things like Chalice of the Void for one will still wreck this deck. But quite honestly, I haven't had a game where I played where Chalice of the Void, Dampening Sphere, or Blood Moon has stopped me from moving forward and being able to win the game. Like I've had plenty of opponents play those cards, and it almost seems like it doesn't stop me from being able to play Doubling Season and ultimating a Planeswalker, which ends the game for my opponent. So, that being the case, I think even with this many artifacts in the game, the deck still works perfectly fine. I did take out the ancient strings I had in the deck, and I decided to put in expedition maps, mainly because I am trying to get to Tron as quick as possible. And because I'm trying to get the Tron as quick as possible, ancient strings, even though it did it, it was unreliable sometimes. And I had someone point out to me that, maybe expedition maps would be a good addition. So I decided to take the advice. I think it was a guy named X11 or something like that as his gamer tag. But he gave me the advice, and I was like, you know what? I'm willing to try it because I've actually played Tron before, competitive Tron, so I know how the card works. I was dabbling around with, all the different pieces of the Tron engine with this deck. And Ancient Strings was working really good for a while, but then, you get that odd game where the cards are lined up just the wrong way. And after missing with Ancient Strings a couple times, I was kind of looking around for a different option. So I got the expedition maps here, and So far, they've been working great every single time I've used them. The Oath of Nissa's still here. Terrarian. I think I had 3 in one of my videos that I did. I reduced that to 2 just to get an extra expedition map in there. Because a playset of expedition maps just seemed like it would work a lot better. But the Terrarians are still here just because they set my mana up so well. You know, the fact that on turn 2 you can tap 2 of your Tron lands to sacrifice a Terrarian to add 2 green mana, which then you could use to cast Manamorphose or 2 Oath of Nisses. You know, it's a win. But on that note, Manamorpho's still here. Hey, it makes the deck have 1 less card in it. And, you know, to a lot of people that's not important, but when you're trying to play the odds of you know, getting a whole bunch of one-offs in your deck, being able to reduce the number of cards that are in the deck is pretty amazing. That and the fact that this card allows you to draw. And it sets your mana up. The Liliana of the Veils are still here. Main reason why, even though it's double black, the fact that you can cast or force your opponent to discard cards, have them sacrifice a creature, or sacrifice whatever permanent you deem worse at that point in time. You can put it into a pile by itself and pretty much force your opponent to have to choose it. Jace, Architect of Thoughts, still here, 2 copies of him, even though he's double blue, so just like with the Liliana, Interplanar Beacon doesn't allow you to cast them as easily as all the other Planeswalkers. But speaking of Jace, Architect of Thought, I have recently thought of a combo that I could play with Architect of Thought to where you basically have doubling season out, you cast an Architect of Thought, you ultimate him, and there's a card named Wheel of Sun and Moon, and it says whenever a card is going to go into your graveyard, put it on the bottom of your deck. So basically that enables you to cast Jace, Architect of Thought over and over and over again, and pretty much cast your opponent's entire deck, except for their lands, of course. So you can cast all the cards from their deck by just infinitely using Jace over and over and over again. Now, while I did get that combo to, you know, be pulled off, I either one of 2 things happened. I broke the program that I was using to play the game, and it wouldn't allow me to do it infinitely. Or there are some rules stating that you can't do the exact same thing more than X amount of times. So, because that's the case, I ended up to where I could not use Jace an infinite amount of times. I think I got to use him like 4 times, and then for some odd reason, whenever I would exile a Jace to, you know, cast it for free, it would just go ahead and stay in exile, which I thought was super weird because just by, you know, what the cards state, you should be able to do it. But either ways, you know, just me knowing the fact that I pulled that combo off was extremely fulfilling in my book. And if y'all have never done it, I would recommend doing it. Because, you know what I mean, if you can use your opponent's entire deck against them, whether that may be mill, burn, whatever. Hey, especially burn. If you're going against a burn deck and then you can just turn around and just burn them with all their spells and win the game, you know, that it gives you a pretty good feeling. But yeah, so I was able to pull that combo off. Like I said, I'm not sure if I broke the program that I was using or what, but it stopped me from continuously doing it. But I still did it for a couple turns. But still, with the Wheel of Sun and Moon in play, it should allow you to where you can cast Jace, use his ultimate ability, and it goes to the bottom of your deck, which enables you to cast him over again. So yeah, if you guys want to give that combo a try, or you know exactly why that combo does not happen an infinite amount of times, maybe we have to throw something in there that breaks the combo up, like cast another card first, in which case the cards that we're going to exile, we just choose to cast another one first, and then we should be good. But either ways, we just have to figure out why the combo was an infinite. Or, like I said, maybe I broke the program. I would like to think I broke the program because, quite honestly, that would be something I would like to do again because it was pretty awesome. Alright, so next, the Nahiri. Hey, one copy of Nahiri the Harbinger still here. Excellent Planeswalker. I know in Double Moon Walkers, she has 4 copies of her in that deck. Just because of the fact that if you can put this Planeswalker down on turn 2 and you ultimate it twice, next turn you can go get an Emrakul and swing into your opponent. Which, hey, that early in the game, it's gonna win you the game. Hands down. The Rouse Zarek, still have 1 copy of him here. He works extremely well with Interplanar Beacon, just like Nahiri and Samut. So since you can pretty much always cast him, no problem, and you can tap something like a Dampening Sphere and then follow up with exiling it with Nahiri, which I've done on multiple occasions. Or you can untap one of your Tron lands, that way you have enough to where you can cast Emrakul. Or you could deal 3 damage to something that your opponent doesn't want dead and kill it. So Rouse Wreck just seems to work extremely well in the deck, so I'm gonna leave him in here forever. But I think the thing I like doing with him most is flipping those 5 coins to, get 5 extra turns and watching the look on your opponent's face when they realize you have 5 turns to figure out how to win the game. Alright, so the Samut still here. Never have I ever used the +1 ability. At first I thought that maybe I would be able to use the +1 ability with Emrakul Aether of Eons. But because of how Emrakul has protection from everything, you can't even target Emrakul. So because you can't target Emrakul, it pretty much makes it to where that's a waste of ability. But still, she can deal 1 damage to up to 2 permanents, or she can go fetch you 2 different Planeswalkers. Which, if you can choose which one of those abilities to use, you're gonna choose to go fetch 2 Planeswalkers every time. Or you can go fetch a Planeswalker and a creature, whatever combination you deem fit at that point in time. But for me, I'm going to go fetch 2 Planeswalkers. Tamio is still here, even though it's extremely difficult for it to be used with Interplanar Beacon just because of the fact that it takes 3, colored mana of different colors. But she's still here. As far as the sideboard goes up here, Fountain of Renewals are in here just because of the life gain. Navigator's Compass, life gain once more. Veil of Summer. Typically, whenever I use Veil of Summer, I'm going against an opponent playing control, and the issue that I'm having is they're countering all my spells. So, what I've started doing to play around control is I've started getting my land set up, and then after I get my land set up, I make sure I have 9 mana on the board. Alright, so After I make sure I have 9 mana set up, I will go ahead and bait my opponent with casting Doubling Season, and when they do try to counter it, hit them with the Veil of Summer, which prevents the spell from being countered, and they're done countering all my spells for the turn. Doubling Season resolves, and right afterwards I just play a Planeswalker and I use that to end the game. Just gotta figure out which combination of Planeswalkers I want to go get to end the game because it's difficult. You have to pretty much learn how to chain off the Planeswalkers correctly to get to the point where you know you're gonna win the game. Navigator's Compass. I mentioned the life gain portion of it, but it also taps to make one of your lands a basic land until the end of your turn. So if you just have Tron lands and you need a green mana, you can tap Navigator's Compass to make one of them a forest. And there you go, you have your green mana. Fountain of Renewal gains you 1 life every turn during your upkeep. Or you could pay 3 mana and sacrifice it, which, like you guys can imagine, since I'm playing Tron, I have no shortage of mana. So, late game, definitely using this to draw a card if I'm just trying to get, like a Planeswalker to win the game or something. But, using this card against Burn, it has came in clutch for me every time, and it's caused me to win the game pretty much every time. So now I actually like playing against burn decks because I want to see if they have enough fuel to where they can, kill me before I start gaining ridiculous amounts of life from Fountain Renewal, Navigator's Compass, and Interplanar Beacons. So because I have so many different life gain sources, it makes it extremely resilient against burn decks. And next, Wilt. So the Wilt's still on the sideboard because it gets rid of Blood Moon, Dampening Sphere, Chalice of the Void. And like I had mentioned burn decks a second ago, hey, Blood Moon, if you're going against burn, you're expecting Blood Moon to hit the battlefield. And this gets rid of Blood Moon. While this can also allow you to cycle a card if you need to. So typically, if I'm going against somebody playing a burn deck, I'll go ahead and sideboard out all my straight raids. Because if it's going to deal 2 damage to me just for me to draw a card, the 2 damage at that point in time would actually be helping my opponent out. So because that's the case, I'll go ahead and just, sideboard them out for some life gain options. The Nickel Bull's Dragon God is still here because, hey, I love the fact that he can use any other Planeswalker's abilities. Or he could just end the game if your opponent does not control a Planeswalker or a legendary creature. Doubling Season, main point of the deck. There's no way I can not have 4 copies of this in here. But on that note, I have won plenty of games without Doubling Season being in play. Like depending on how the game goes, if you have Oath of Nissa out and you have Tron set up, you could be dropping 2 Planeswalkers every single turn. And if you're gonna get, 4 or 5 Planeswalkers out, your opponent's gonna scoop because that will set them back a lot, and there's almost no way for them to catch up. Like just imagine you have a Karn Liberated out, and you go get a Dragon God right next to him. Now you have 2 Planeswalkers that are zapping your opponent's permanents every turn. So, in less than 2 turns, your opponent's pretty much going to have nothing on the battlefield that can stand a chance against you. Or even if you have Spirit, Ugin the Spirit Dragon out, and the Nicol Bolas Dragon God out, unless your opponent has permanents that cost more than 5 mana, you're pretty much wiping your opponent's board clean, and you're making it sure it stays clean every single turn from then on. But yeah, obviously these 2 guys right here, very overpowered. Pretty much just by themselves, they explain exactly why they're in the deck. Not to mention that you can cast them easily on turn 3. You can cast Emrakul, no problem. On turn 4, you can cast Spirit Dragon, no problem. And those are both a world of hurt for your opponent. So, yeah. Those guys are never coming out of this deck, for sure. Then Emrakul, the Aeon's Thorn, still in the deck. Hey, just because of Nahiri and the fact that Jace can go, pretty much fetch this card out and have you cast him. Or if your Jace goes off and you have Emrakul in your hand, you're gonna use your Jace, go fetch your Tamiyo, ultimate your Tamiyo, which make you cast spells for free and draw you 3 cards at the same time. And after that happens, then you're gonna cast your Emrakul, which is gonna grant you an extra turn. And during that extra turn, you're gonna be able to swing at your opponent. Typically, if I'm playing against someone and I cast Emrakul with either Jace or using Tamiyo's ability, I am going to swing at my opponent before I do anything at all in my main phase. The reason why is you don't want to give your opponent the priority to go ahead and do something extra on your turn. Or like use a cryptic command and counter your spell. And after countering your spell, they're going to decide to tap all your creatures. So to not give them that option and just make it to where they tap all my creatures and draw a card maybe. Or try to return a permanent to my hand. I'll just go ahead and attack first, right off the bat, especially if I'm going against control. Like right off the bat, I don't do nothing else. I just go straight to attack phase and swing at them. That way they gotta sack permanents. Alright, so with the Teferi, anti-control, while also the control players are gonna be playing him. But hey, he works great against them, so that being the case, you know what? I'll put one on the sideboard. Yes, I've had to use this card before, and it has worked every time, because if control players get to a point to where you're like, hey, you know what? I'm no longer gonna allow you to play exactly how you want to play, and try to control how I play. It makes a big difference. Because like you guys know, if you're going against a control player, a majority of their deck is just counter spells. And more counter spells. And then more counter spells. Then if you're lucky, you might get to cast a card. But you guys know that's how it is. So yeah, still have 1 copy of this guy in here. And he's a planeswalker, so doubling season is gonna get him up to 8 loyalty counters. Which is gonna make it to where you can go ahead and return 2 of your opponent's permanents back to their hand. And you get to draw a card. So you're a planeswalker. The Tamiyo, Collector of Tales, is still here. Once again, an anti-counter card. Because if you know, the new counter decks that have been out recently have been causing you to not discard cards, but they've been causing you to sacrifice permanents and mull cards. And discard cards. So, I mean mill cards, not mull cards. They've been causing you to mill cards, discard, and sacrifice. So, this Planeswalker is pretty much stopping all those things from happening. Especially with the new Ashiok out, with the static ability. This card comes in clutch every single time. So, yeah, I have 1 copy of her in the sideboard. And, when you have a silver bullet against another deck, you absolutely love sideboarding it in against someone who's playing that deck, because on the off chance that you do get this card, it's going to completely change the game for your opponent, and they're going to have to figure out some other type of way to win the game. Not saying currently in the modern format that there aren't other options in the decks to win. Because, just because you can shut down one thing that a deck is doing does not mean that that deck does not work efficiently. Perfect example of that would be this deck. Doubling season can be removed no problem, but like I mentioned, if you can have 5 planeswalkers out and one of them being Dragon Guide, your opponent is not recovering from that unless they destroy all permanents. And even if they do destroy all permanents, the fact that you have so many planeswalkers out, you're probably going to be zapping their lands right off the bat. Especially if you have Karn on the battlefield. So you should be able to prevent your opponent from doing anything at that point in time. But yes, this is the most recent version of my Tron deck, and it has the highest win percentage I've ever had using this deck. So, I just wanted to make a final video letting you guys know exactly how the deck is doing. And ask for any ideas on a new deck. Like if you guys have any cards that you would like to see a deck built around, just leave a comment. And yeah, I'll get to working on that deck. And once again, I want to just say I appreciate all the people that helped out with this deck, all the people who lost to this deck. I appreciate the feedback because, quite honestly, even though you guys lost to the deck, a majority of you all gave me valuable feedback that, helped me put this deck together and and get it to the point where it's at right now. But I'll release a video later just, playtesting it on Tapped Out just so you guys can see how I use the deck and how it just tends to flow smoothly. But until next time, hope you guys keep enjoying Magic, keep enjoying Modern, and if you do have a deck idea out there that you're trying to make work, that multiple people have told you is not gonna work, even though it's fun, I'd say just stick with it. If you need any help, leave a comment and I'll be more than happy to help y'all out with that. On that note, I'm out and I will see you all in the next video.